Within Combat Evolved's modding community, Lemuria is a bit of a notorious project. For some, it's a comforting memory, full of nostalgia and good times. For others, it's a bit of a goofy but well-intentioned attempt by fans to make their own Halo game. It really depends on who you ask. One thing was concrete though, Lemuria is a name that has meaning within Combat Evolved's community. I'd only ever heard it mentioned in my comments section, but just with the way that people talked about it, I could feel its legacy. And finally, I got a chance to play it. It was brought into reality post-Halo 3, and the reason I say this is to stress the importance of what Halo 2 and 3 brought to the series. More ambitious and dialogue-heavy cutscenes, and dramatic levels with events that the players didn't necessarily drive and influence through their gameplay, but more experience, such as Halo 2 and Halo 3's Scorpion sequences, which were much more about the scale and satisfaction of watching brute choppers or Covenant ghosts transform into flaming balls of metal in response to your guns. Through its gameplay, this mod tries to incorporate lessons from the later games within the framework of Combat Evolved, and it's really interesting. I don't think it always works, but it was definitely enjoyable as an experience. Lemuria is really ambitious, and I'd like to talk to you about my experience with it. It opens up to a rather poorly written and poorly paced title crawl, but let me attempt to translate what it's trying to get across to the player. Humanity is a collective that set out to the stars in order to find out why the stars worked. Science drove humanity to branch out. And when the Covenant attacked, resources had to be diverted to the war, but in the face of certain destruction, humanity's curiosity just couldn't be contained. And against orders, a group of researchers traveled to a planet called Lemuria, an artificial creation that shouldn't technically exist. And due to this being a shooter, things clearly go wrong when the researchers are trapped on the planet and send a distress signal to the UNSC. The UNSC now have to save these researchers from the Covenant, and that's when the game starts. It's not a great reason for the story existing, and the text crawl was a bit sloppy, but the promise of an artificial planet where we get to kill aliens certainly is an enticing promise to players. When the first cutscene begins, we're presented with the usual problem for most fan mods. A cutscene where the music is too loud, the characters' voices are too quiet, and everybody's microphones vary in quality. Despite all this though, you can't help but appreciate the effort going into this opening cutscene. It's really trying. And because of that, I can look past the clear artificiality of it. We are Spartan May. She's a 7-foot-tall super soldier with a good head on her shoulders and an even better gun in her hands. We get into a drop pod and a la Halo 2 land on the planet's surface, kick open the door, and begin a search for our fellow soldier, Brandon, so that we can then set out to find the lost research team. Again, a bit clunky, but it works. It's fascinating when walking around Lemuria, seeing familiar assets from Combat Evolved, similar color palettes to its mountainous and naturalistic environments, but rearranged in a more linear and Halo 2-like manner, with winding outdoor hallways that open up to rather humble vistas and little arenas where you can have gunfights. Halo Combat Evolved usually reserved tight, linear segments for artificial locations, such as the inside of a ship or Forerunner facility, with the outdoor environments trying their hardest to be as large as life itself and give you the illusion that you're truly outside. It was one of the main selling points of the game back then. For engine reasons and priority changes in design, Halo 2 shrunk everything down and made the outdoor environments more directed and linear. And it's really interesting to play through levels that look like Combat Evolved, but feel like Halo 2 or 3. That word though, feel. It's a good word to describe the world of Lemuria itself. It's beautiful, simply beautiful. I really like the Combat Evolved engine. It's hard to explain because technically speaking, it's easily outpaced by anything released today. But in that Mario 64 way, there's a weird timelessness and simplicity to its vistas and rolling green hills that's immediately inviting, at least to me. Lemuria is a truly beautiful place that feels real and authentic within the engine. Many times the linearity would give way to these large, impressive, and original skyboxes, with a curious forerunner moon in the sky and strange beams of light shooting off into the sky hundreds of miles away. You'd hear these strange animal noises, you'd see alien birds lazily drifting around in the cool mountainous breeze. After a few shootouts, I enter an underground tunnel and find a terminal. There's apparently more terminals in the mod, but I can't find them, and any attempt to get help in locating them has been in vain. If anyone has the actual contents of the original Lemuria's terminals, I'd love to read them. The terminal I found tells of an AI having a conversation with a forerunner called Librarian. It asks the Librarian why it exists and what life is. This mod has a lot of clunky exposition, bad voice actors delivering bad dialogue in service of a rather unfocused story, but this terminal here contains something truly classic Halo. Instead of flatly expositing the meaning of life, the Librarian gives it a husk of a world, gives it seeds. She tells the AI to find out for itself. Lemuria, the miles and miles of forests and trees, the strange alien birds, the towering mountains and rolling clouds. This is that AI's journey into discovering what life is. It dug its own hands into the soil, planted the seed, and watched as the plant grew. Looking out beyond the sea of green, the metal moon, and contemplating the terminal that told of an immortal gardener that thousands of years ago tended to the soil that I now stand upon is really a perfect Halo moment. And that perfect moment was interrupted by the reality of the situation. This is not a flawless product. This is a first-time attempt by some passionate Halo modders, and some cracks will show. A bad voice actor, easily the worst one in my opinion, clunkily introduces himself, and I cringe as Brandon and this new character talk, their differing microphone qualities and deliveries mixing like water and oil.
LZ is a little hot. Hang tight, Marines, I'm bringing us down.
Lemuria's presentation is incredibly inconsistent, but the passion is real, and that's what matters. It's a mod, and the mod has a lot of spirit. The level then goes on to take you through many exotic locations, like a water-filled cave with light shining through gaps in the ceiling cover, ancient halls, and sprawling hills. And despite its janky voice acting, I was buying Lemuria as a world. Until I wasn't. At the moment when we think we finally find the missing research team, the single worst thing that a fan mod can do happens. The thing that people joke about with any fan-made creation. Linkin Park unironically begins playing through my speakers. Instantly, Lemuria comes crashing down around me as the electric guitars and drums fill my speakers. This was so eye-rollingly stupid that it made me doubt, just for a second, the genuine world building that the mod had set up previously. Perhaps maybe I was giving the mod too much credit, but no. As I muted my speakers and just shot my way through a rather clumsy boss encounter that was ill-advised, I understood that this is just a fan mod, and one that was released in 2010 at that. This kind of eye-rolling cheese was cheesy back then, but it was also more accepted than it is here now, almost a decade later. I still didn't like it though. And what's worse is the scientists that we are supposedly saving are never really mentioned. It's like the mod forgot about these scientists in its excitement to try out a bad Halo 2-esque boss battle on the player. It's entirely possible that a while back someone made some comment about them being dead and it's too late, and I just couldn't hear the dialogue under the Linkin Park that was way too loud. From the moment that the Linkin Park started playing, this is when the mod really dips hard, and it stays in this kind of negative place for about 9 minutes of cutscenes that are a collection of poorly paced, poorly scripted filler that honestly the SPV3 remake did best to remove. In the span of 9 minutes, we are told that Lemuria is actually, contrary to what the terminal said, a catalog of all life in the galaxy and acts as a database for planets and locations of species, which is bad for Earth. We escape in an overly long cutscene, then the cutscene changes to a different one where we watch random pelicans shot down, which takes way too long, and then, without comment, the cutscene switches to a new one where we are on the control bridge, and characters repeat the information that we just learned, only for Brandon then to say, "So let me get this straight," and then, for a third time in less than 7 minutes, we are told the same information that we know. The cutscene then ends with over 2 minutes of embarrassingly long getting ready sequences. This cutscene is easily the worst one in the game. It's flat, lacking in energy, and it goes on way too long. But once it is done, the level can finally begin. The next level begins quite strongly with a standard beach landing that is kind of reminiscent of Halo 3's, complete with destroying an AA Wraith to make way for a Pelican landing. If I did have to point to any Halo levels that Lemuria was reminding me of, it might have taken inspiration from both the Covenant and the Ark from Halo 3. The Forerunner structures even begin to evoke the same feeling of Halo 3's structures, using a bronze color for its metals and featuring sprawling, detailed, cathedral-like designs. This level does make a few attempts to slow you down, though, such as an EM generator that shuts down your Warthog. Despite me riding a ghost, it's little moments like these that do remind you that this is a fan mod that the developers honestly didn't consider that the player might not be using a Warthog and might be using a ghost. And it gets even funnier when you see a ghost whizzing around in the very arena that you have to fight in to bring down the supposed EM generator. You eventually learn that the Covenant found a room containing an AI of some kind, and that had me both excited and a little worried. You see, this mod notoriously has a cutscene that people say it lifted from Mass Effect, where you speak to an AI, and it's a cutscene that's frequently cited as the worst one in the game. I didn't know if I believed that, though, because surely the worst cutscene in the game was 2 minutes of watching a camera lifelessly float around a vehicle bay. I made my way to this AI structure and entered it to find the Covenant dead. They were all dead. I was expecting an encounter in here, but something got to these Covenant first. I interacted with a terminal near a window, and then the cutscene played.
Ensemble, here in front of me. My form is not yet complete. All samples are to remain in their designated environs. Your destruction is the will of the gods. Punishment for refusal to follow orders is de-evolution. Please return to your designated environ. I shall grind you into dust. The librarian shall be arriving soon, and I will have all my facilities appropriately arranged before that time. You know nothing.
Immediately, what I thought was confusion. What? I looked up the cutscene on YouTube before continuing because it was really hard to tell what the AI was even saying. The presentation was clearly trying to evoke the cutscene in Mass Effect where Shepard meets Sovereign, but this was definitely not as well executed as that one. In doing some research online, I learned that the AI apparently has 2 voices. You can't hear it because of the way that the voices are mixed and edited, but there's supposedly a more cool and mechanical one, and then an angry and screeching one that the AI switches between. The AI had been waiting for the librarian to return. It probably didn't expect her to just never return, and it was given the instructions to grow a garden world and wait for her. It believes that you are humans she's returned with. You're not ready yet for its garden world, and it wants to contain you until you're pure. I don't know if this is a really clumsy allegory for the Garden of Eden, but knowing Halo, this is probably exactly what's going on here. What fails this cutscene more than its incredibly fast pacing is that if the player didn't read terminals beforehand and couldn't understand the awful voice quality, it means that they don't really even know what they're seeing. And then puzzlingly, the cutscene ends, and without words, your HUD tells you to take out the AI. Not the characters. There's no dialogue about what that could have been. Everyone, just for some reason, silently understands what to do, where to go, and how to have battle with this AI. Sometimes when I draw or make a video, I lose steam near the end. All my creative energy went into the beginning and the middle, and then I have very little left for the end. If you ever feel that sometimes, not always, but sometimes my videos end rather abruptly, it's not you. It's something that definitely happens, and I've gotten quite good at not doing that, but it still happens. This felt like the developers burning out temporarily. In the same mod that dedicated 9 minutes to cutscenes, now the mod suddenly ran out of storytelling juice. That's what fails this cutscene, but it was not the worst cutscene in the game. That easily goes to the 2-minute hangar cutscene. The Covenant are rather confusing now. I'm not sure why they seem to be trying to protect the massive AI, but we fight through them all the same. This is when the mod really flexes its ambitious muscles. That energy bounces back. In the Engine of Combat Evolved, we get a massive Halo 3-esque sequence of fighting an army up a hill while massive warships overhead pelt each other with explosives. It's so ambitious and taxing on the engine that certain particle effects straight up can't render, like explosions. The engine is being put to its absolute limit here, and it's glorious to see something of this scale in Combat Evolved. You're about to enter the building you somehow know to go to when the AI enters May's mind through her neural implants. It accesses her body and talks to her directly. It taunts her menacingly as it floats overhead, this massive, comical, monolithic thing. When the gameplay is handed back to me, I hear bells in the soundtrack. Familiar bells. Oh no, the mod's gonna do it again. Bam, Breaking Benjamin begins playing, but you know what? Instead of normally getting upset that a mod would commit the same sin twice, I recognize that the thoughtful and immersive world that the first couple minutes of gameplay set up, I wouldn't be getting that. This is a fan mod, and the fans are clearly having fun experimenting with what works within a Halo setting. There's a rampant AI that is being evil and floating menacingly. There's Covenant running around, explosions aren't rendering in because of everything that's going on, and now there's this goofy song that's playing that doesn't belong in Halo, and you know what? Alright mod, I'll comply. I'll let you have this one. I enjoyed the song and I shot up aliens. The AI rambling in my mind says that it detects a rampant AI. It orders this rampant AI to comply. And when this rampant AI doesn't, it shoots itself. It was the rampant AI it detected. It's goofy. And it's really goofy when the unapologetic sounds of Breaking Benjamin blaring through my speakers are just barely drowning out this supposedly very serious moment, and it was silly. And I liked it. Eventually you land in the center of an obvious boss arena, and oh no, Brandon is stabbed by an elite. It's not really a powerful moment since I don't really know or care about Brandon. But it's motivation nonetheless to put this no-good elite boss down. Halo 2 taught us the hard way that Halo doesn't do boss battles well. This is a lesson Halo 5 also had to learn itself, and the mod here twice is learning that same lesson. Now that the boss battle was over, the mod was done. I was greeted to a hilariously melodramatic cutscene where May stabs the elite who killed Brandon. A scientist who accompanied us, I think, says that he successfully purged all mentions of Earth from the archives, so we're safe. The massive AI is taken down, drops like a rock in this really funny manner, and then a very serious monologue starts. Hello everyone, this is Late Night Gaming from the future. So guess what? This video was completely rendered. I uploaded it to YouTube. Turns out the song in this cutscene is copyright material from one of the Bourne movies. So I cannot play this song without my video getting orbital bombardment from Universal Pictures. I tried to use all sorts of commands to get the song to stop, and since this is a fan mod, they probably saved the song as a specific audio file that's not tagged as like a piece of music or something. So I have no clue what to do. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is to go find the cutscene on YouTube and watch it, because it's pretty great. Okay, I've been working at this for an hour and I'm mad. If it weren't for the Breaking Benjamin breaking me down earlier, I might have rolled my eyes at this, but this monologue had me grinning from ear to ear. The voice actress for May isn't awful. She mostly does a good job, even if her lines and writing let her down, and seeing her genuinely delivering this hammy speech about research and rebuilding and remembering lives lost was delightfully cheesy. Lemuria had moments where I was frustrated with it. It showed signs of being rather clever, even if it didn't have the talent at the time to execute on that cleverness. And that was my own fault for not understanding that sometimes things are a learning process when you're doing this for a first time. After the final mission for Lemuria was released, the developers talked about the lessons they learned over the course of the development and how they want to carry those lessons forward into whatever future games they pursue, and I can respect that. Like the AI that was given an entire planet to itself and told to learn about life by caring for it, this mod was as much about the developers learning how to make a game as it was being a game on its own, and I can respect that a lot as an art project. This was about learning. Lemuria is a beautifully ambitious thing, and I understand now its notoriety, and as the credits rolled, I was happy that I was able to play through an interactive portrayal of the learning process for an artist. I enjoyed myself. So I have a couple questions for you guys. What's your take on Lemuria, whether it be playing it itself firsthand or watching people's videos on it, and what mods would you like me to cover in the future? I'll hand the questions off to you guys, and I'll see you all on the next video.